But welcome to another exciting class of Apostolic Life and Leadership, which is featured by Preserving the Christian Family. And for those of you that aren't familiar, there's a lot of new people who haven't joined with us before. Let me just give you a 90-second overview of what we're all about. So, Preserving the Christian Family is a nonprofit that my wife and I launched January of 2021. So, we're coming up on 4 years here. And it's designed to strengthen, as the name implies, apostolic families. We offer counseling for pastors and saints and been able to do hundreds of hours of that since we started. Also do seminars and different things on marriage, family, parenting, leadership, etc. And so, but one thing we started offering 1 year ago actually was not able to mute MB. There we go. We started offering 1 year ago was these Apostolic Life and Leadership classes. And actually, it was November of last year we kicked it off with Bishop Joel Holmes teaching about prayer. Had a number of great men of God teaching since in various topics. So tonight we're very privileged and honored to have Pastor Douglas Walker with us, and I'd ask him to speak. We kind of build it as effective communication, but it's something I heard him teach on his Truth Talk podcast, which is phenomenal, really, really tremendous. I highly recommend you checking that out on YouTube and their church website, wherever you can get it. And he talks a lot in this particular lesson, the one I've asked him to share about upward descent, how to express yourself when you have concerns with people that are over you in the hierarchical structure of an organization, be it nonprofit, business, whatever. He also talks about groupthink, the dangers of that. And to just give you a little idea, we lumped it all under effective communication because that's really kind of the overarching category. But Brother Walker, we appreciate you so much being here, sir. And I will turn it over to you, and I will continue to let people in. And I'm going to mute so that if I start to amen you, it won't pick me up. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity, chance to talk to you about this subject. Now, if you go on Truth Church or Apple or Spotify or wherever the podcast is, and you listen to it, I guarantee you it's going to be different because I can't hardly remember what all I said. And so the joy of doing the podcast is that I can just roll down there in the studio and just kind of riff off of whatever it is that I'm reading. And so it's kind of a stream of consciousness type thing. So I'm really thankful for the chance to talk to you. It's about a key subject, and that subject is how do you communicate the issues in life that are probably the most confrontational or conflicting. And sometimes, how do you communicate upward? Okay. So let me start by saying a big thing of mine with communication is set it up for success, right? Anything you're going to do, if you're going to build a house, foundation is important. Well, that's true with communication as well. You get out of communication what you expect and what you've set it up for. So, for instance, if someone stops me and says, Douglas, do you have a couple seconds? I automatically assume that a couple seconds, which a minute or two, would be what they want to talk about. And it's going to be fairly mundane. It's going to be, I was talking to somebody the other day. Do you know these people, or do they know you? Or hey, we had all talked about getting together and doing something in regards to an event. It's going to be kind of just touch and go. However, if they want something more substantive, a proper way to do that so that I'm not in a hurry and you're not losing someone's attention, or you're not trying to get a 30-minute in-depth dialogue out of something that is set up for a couple seconds. So the way I would suggest that someone do this first off is, how do you approach the person? Okay. So if you walk up to a superior, a boss, anybody like that and say, hey, I just kind of want to know, do you have 2 seconds? And you launch into a valid critique, but a critique nonetheless, that's not going to be well received, right? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to get your voice heard. You got to break free from the pack, okay? And it's hard to do because the pack is strong and there's a lot of people involved in any institution and organization, whatever it is. Be that as it may, the best way to do that would be to text, email, whatever, and say, listen, when it's convenient, I need about 45 minutes to discuss something really important. Well, that all of a sudden communicates to me multiple things. Number one, it communicates to me that this is important. There's some intentionality that went into this. They've thought their way in an approach spectrum to it. The other thing it's going to let me know is there is a time stamp on it, that this is not something that's going to be done in 2 seconds. That this is going to be something that is serious and that you're going to want to approach this in a more substantive way. Now, I don't expect that because I think I'm important. I expect that because I believe people are important. Okay. And I want to take time with them. So, like, this meeting was scheduled, right? There's no ringing phones, there's no distraction to me because you set this up through communication. Okay. So, the best way to do it is they'll say, sure, I have 45 minutes on Wednesday. Anything you want to prep this meeting with? Yeah, it's some opportunities that we're missing, and it would be great to improve on production or improve on retention. Immediately, you have broken free from the pack, from a critic to a solution provider. All of a sudden, you have my undivided attention. Okay. And I know going in that you're there to help me produce a better product or to retain or to succeed in this. Okay. So, upward descent, you have to have in every organization the ability to offer a voice of dissent. Okay. The Supreme Court is masterful at this. Okay. So, there's an overwhelming idea that's before the court, and they will either give their dissenting opinion or they will give their affirming opinion. Okay. So when you are wanting to register a dissenting opinion, how do you do that? How is it that you can articulate that I do have something important to say? Okay. Expressing disagreement upward to a supervisor, an elder, or management. It's a challenging form, okay, of compliance gaining. Followers who take issue with decisions, policies, procedures lack the power to make the changes themselves. So they have to have a way to express their opposition to the people who are in power, to the people who can make the decisions. Okay. So not a lot of people in a hierarchy can make decisions. But if the decision maker allows people the ability to voice their concerns or talk, it's going to be a benefit, okay? Because it's going to improve my organization, and it's also going to foster a pursuit of excellence. Not excellence, but at least at a minimum, we're pursuing it, right? We're doing everything we can every day to get better, and you're now a part of the team, okay? Now, here's the challenge. Upward descent is risky because there's always the threat of retaliation. Okay. So why not just get along, go along and get along? Okay. I don't want to expose myself as somebody who's not in agreement with plans or visions or whatever. Okay. However, those who express their dissent, okay, to management and organizations, they offer a valuable product, because what it does is it gives real-time feedback that says it is extremely important for us to hear from people. Okay. So I want you to listen to this real quick. According to the University of Arizona West communication professor Jeffrey Cassing, satisfied workers who identify with their organizations are more likely to express upward dissent. Followers are more likely to speak up if, one, they have higher status, two, they believe that they can exert significant influence, or three, they have high quality relationships with their superiors. So it's not a sign of unhealthy communication. It's not a sign of my leadership paradigm or the platform of my authority being attacked. It's an opportunity and a chance for people to come in and sit down and say, here's a way that we can explain and we can foster a greater productivity. Now, especially this is true in the Pentecostal movement, is we believe that some critiques are a challenge to our authority. And very well, that may be true. However, research suggests that it's actually a compliment to my authority. That number one, they believe that I have the power to change things. Okay. Number two, they believe that the organization is worth persisting in, even in adverse circumstances or scenarios, but there's still more good than there is bad. And number three, they trust me as a leader that I'm not going to browbeat them later for them expressing valid concerns. Okay. So if you're wanting to break out, and this is where leaders are looking for people who are breaking out of groupthink. There's a couple different theories and ideas on groupthink. And one of the theories is that groupthink is all bad. And I don't agree with that, because every community, certainly a church or a faith community, has to have an element of at least doctrinal groupthink, or else the thing falls apart into chaos. Okay. So groupthink, it gives you the social cohesion you need. So there's a desire for unity. Teams naturally, they seek cohesion and harmony, kind of to maintain positive relationships. The other reason that people get into groupthink is they are conflict avoiders. Okay. So if someone's a conflict avoider, they're going to get into groupthink. That way the group will think for them. They never have to actually participate in a conflict or expressing their opinion. So groupthink also is about, there's leadership influence. If the groupthink becomes too toxic or strong, it's because of extreme authoritarian leadership. And those styles can stifle independent thinking or discourage dissent. Okay. The other reason that people choose to hide in conflict avoidance and groupthink is fear of reprisal. Now, think about this. If I raise my voice out of the group and I kind of, go and say to the leader that I disagree with something or feel like something should be done about a certain scenario, if that leader is trusted, people are more likely to come out of groupthink and quit living in the shadow of conflict avoidance and start living in the power of solution provision. Okay. But if they're afraid that there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction from me, that's going to stifle them and force them into the conflict avoidance of groupthink. Okay. So there's a couple other reasons why groupthink is very important, and pressure to conform, norms and expectations. Every culture, leadership culture style, develops a normative pattern of behavior. And so people believe that the norm is the doctrine or vision of the leader. Well, if you have a leader that is progressive and wanting to open up new opportunities, whether it's in business, whether it's in outreach and evangelism opportunities, whatever it is, he's or she is very open to having the maximum amount of success. That's going to foster people to present ideas without feeling like they're attacking the leader's vision or the leader's ability to understand what the objective is. So it's important. Now, leaders that are truly leading for the cause of a better world and a better business and a better model and a better church. Okay, those leaders understand the negative consequences of groupthink, such as poor decision making. Okay, groupthink can result in suboptimal decisions due to the suppression of dissenting opinions. Nobody challenges anything, or the lack of innovation. Conformity stifles creativity. We know that. Okay. And so I love it in scripture where the apostles are constantly being challenged by scenarios and coming up with new solutions, not new doctrine, not a new church. Other foundation can no man lay other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, every man builds on that. Sorry. Every man builds on that, but take heed, let him what he builds on. Okay. Because what you build on in the long run is going to come about to where God is going to try it. The day shall try it. The circumstances shall try it. Whatever it is, it's going to be tried. It's going to be challenged. Okay. Now, be that as it may, groupthink will provide lack of innovation. Conformity stifles creativity, hindering progress. The other thing about it is the negative is it misses opportunities because one person can't do it all. Okay. And so, however it works and whatever happens, you have to realize that I want people to help me build the greatest church that I can. And I can't do everything. So I want to foster an approach where people are coming to me and honestly opening up and saying, Pastor, have you thought of this? No, I haven't. Let me show you a scenario. There was a man that walked into Ronald Reagan's office, and he comes in with a 3-ring binder. President Reagan's sitting there with his notes, and they're going back and forth. And Reagan is just peppering this man with questions. What if I did this? What's the consequences of that? How do I fix this? What if the Pentagon says this? And what if world leaders push back with this? And the man at the end of the meeting, he says to Ronald Reagan, he said, I don't feel like you know much about what this is. And he said, I feel like you're just asking a bunch of questions that I've commented on. So Reagan says, well, I'm doing the best I can kind of with the time that I have. But this is the end of our meeting. And the man goes to walk out. Ronald Reagan calls him back and says, come here. He says, I'm going to ask you a question. How long did you have to prepare for that? He said, oh, I've been writing the notes on this meeting for like 6.5 months. Ronald Reagan said, I knew your name 45 minutes ago. And I only knew you were coming in here about 30 minutes prior to that. And the reason you got an entrance is because all my staff believed you had the solution. Sir, when you came here, you didn't come here to hear me talk. I didn't need to bring you here for that. You came here because you're in the trenches and you're providing me with solutions. Okay? Because he said, one man and one mind can only accomplish so much. And that man walks away and says, he said, that's the most amazing thing I ever heard a leader say. Because that leader is fundamentally there to pick your brain to include in his vision and in his presence what he's going to do. So it's incumbent on you to break free from groupthink and provide solutions. Now, don't expect when you come and you're dissenting upward, don't expect a functional leader to automatically start saying, hey, wait a minute, I'll do the talking, and just rattling it off. A competent leader is going to pick your brain because you see something from a perspective of both imaginative work, innovative work, and real experience, right? This room, I'm in my library, this room, it intimidates people. By the nature of who I am, people come in here, they don't vent to me the way they would to appear in their peer group, right? So if I build this thing where I'm just trying to tower over anybody, they're going to cower down and they're going to become defensive and say, well, I just want to give them the good news. Okay. I'm not interested in surrounding myself with sycophants. We want people who are using their minds, their brains, because they have an experience. They're working with people who are much more real and transparent than they'd ever be with me. Why? Well, the trust factor may not be there. They may not at that time feel that they can trust. Maybe another scenario, they had another leader who there was a huge negative reprisal against what they said. And so now they're reluctant to ever bring it before a leader. So you've got to foster in every culture or organization that it is safe to bring me dissent. Now, I didn't say critique. I didn't say that people could come in and bring me their complaints. Those people rarely get more than a few minutes, if I'm honest. Okay. So the people who show up and they want to tell me everything that's wrong with the church, very, very limited the amount of time and bandwidth they're going to get from me. But when people break through from groupthink and they come in and they're automatically working on either conflict resolution or problem solution, they automatically have my undivided attention. So here's the thing. Go at it with, you have the several ways that you can look at this, okay? If you're dissenting upwards, okay, there's always the direct factual appeal, okay? Supporting the facts, supporting the complaints with the facts drawn from physical evidence, knowledge of organizations, personal work experiences, okay? You can always do that. That's going to get you heard, okay? There needs to be an element of solution presentation. That's always going to get you heard, okay? Offering a solution along with drawing attention to the problem. For example, writing an email that includes a few suggested new procedures, meeting with a supervisor to outline a different process that may function better. All of these are going to immediately set you up for success. And they're going to say, I want to hear more from this person. Okay. Another way that you can foster a relationship with leadership, leaders need to explain themselves. Okay. And it is incumbent on leaders to both articulate the vision and teach the methodology. Okay. So if you're a leader and they come to you, here's one of the best ways that you can get a leader to sit down and talk to you about something that you want to offer a dissenting opinion on. Okay. And that is set it up like this. Hey, I need 30 minutes of your time to talk to you about something that I don't understand. And I'm sure with a clear explanation from you, it would make so much more sense to me. I need to learn more about this. Immediately, you're going to get a chance to say a whole lot more than somebody who sits there and says, hey, I want to tell you something. I am really, really torqued about this. And I don't like the way this is going. And I don't like how this is panning out. Because what you're going to do is sit down and say, look, I respect you as a leader. So immediately you've set the context for the meeting as in a respectful tone. And I can appreciate the direction that we're going and the successes that we're having. So there's appreciativeness. Okay. And I enjoy when you explain things because you have a certain way of explaining. So I need to tell you what I'm seeing and feeling about what I'm seeing. And I'm sure that you explaining why we're doing something and how we're doing it is going to allay any concerns that I have. Okay. So you sit there and you're able to lay out what you do not appreciate or what you're frustrated with. Okay. The leader isn't threatened. The leader isn't feeling like, okay, well, you're a rebel or you're some preacher that's just wanting to gripe about everything. Immediately, there's a context of respect. And the leader says, I want to hear more about how you see this. So you're able to lay out without any angst or toxicity, okay, what you're trying to say. Now you haven't taken on an adversarial role. You've properly recognized authority and submission, leadership and followership. Within that construct, success is waist deep at that point. All you got to do is tick the boxes to say, I need help with the perspective. Now, an incompetent leader is going to ignore everything that you're saying and basically prattle on. Okay. A competent leader is going to explain the vision, explain the methodology, but also offer back some inclusion to your solution presentation and say, that's interesting that you see it like that. From my point of view, I meant we were going to do this, this, and this. I didn't actually think about all that. Okay. So you're going to take, this just happened to me this morning. So we had a fundraising effort where Bible quizzing was going to go on this certain venture and they were going to raise funds in this way. And they said, do you have any issues with sponsorship? No, I don't. But by the time it got done, it was individual sponsorship. So some kids were getting more money, some were getting less. It was becoming competitive, hurtful. My finance secretary felt comfortable enough to sit down with me and say, hey, this isn't working. I want to hear what got said that you felt like this was going to work. We might be applying what your vision is wrongly. Well, by the time I listened to her ask me for explanations on point A, B, and C, I saw where my high flying 30,000 foot view completely missed the little details of who was walking around and doing what and where and when. So we immediately kind of rectified the situation. It was healthy. Okay. So that's where I'll kind of find a pause here, but try to take away the threats until it's a last ditch effort. When you're dealing in conflict resolution, always let the end game present itself in the negative, but hold on and grasp to the desire and hope that you're going to be able to resolve conflict. You're going to be able to present solutions and it's going to be successfully handled. Think about Matthew 18. Go to your brother one-on-one, then go to him with 2 or 3 witnesses. Then last case scenario. At each point in the conflict resolution, Jesus is giving them an opportunity to, at that level, silence and stop the spread of rumors or accusation. And so we need to think about when we break out of groupthink and we break out of this, how do we set this up for success, right? And the best way to do that is to restore respect. Now, I believe communication works, okay? I'm sold on it. And I believe that the first rule of communication is communicate. So many people say, what's the rules of effective communication? Well, I just figured you know that part. Don't. You've got to communicate. And so always communicate. And once you engage in that, think about, how do I set this up for success? And how do I lay out an objective? So a lot of times, someone will come in and they'll have gotten a 30, 45-minute meeting, whatever it is, 15-minute meeting. Before we get lost in the weeds, one of the first things I ask is, after thank you and pleasantries and whatnot, what is your objective for this meeting? What do you hope to achieve by this? Because we have limited amount of time with each other, and I want to respect what you did to break out of the group think and break out of whatever fear you have of talking to a leader, or discomfort you have with revealing innermost secrets. So what do you want to accomplish? Well, my hope, they'll say, is this, that, or the other thing. I write it down and I explain. I'm going to take notes because your time is very valuable and I don't want to interrupt you. I want you to speak. I'm going to take notes of some questions. So this isn't, you're on trial. I just want to make sure that I'm meeting the objectives and we're producing the best that we can. But when you do that, you're automatically in a better place to have more effective communication. And so when you're dissenting your way up, always set it up for success. Okay. Success starts with communication. It starts with proper timing. Timing is so important. And the third thing is, what is the objective? If you'll state them three things, I guarantee you, you're going to have an infinitely greater amount of success in communication than just trying to grab in a mad reach and dash. Hey, do you have 10 minutes? I want to talk to you. Do you have time right now to talk about what? I'm on my way to something else. What do we want to discuss? Well, then, there's a lot of context. So be very intentional. And so if I want to just holler, like, for instance, I'm just looking at the screen here, and Brother Jeans is on here. If I want to talk to Brother Jeans and it's just, hey, my friend, how you doing? How's church going? Thinking about you. I'm just going to shoot that in a text. And, if he gets back to me, no big deal. I understand it's kind of like lightning from a cloudless sky. I'm not going to get offended about it. Not going to read too much into it. But if I've got something really important and the stakes are high, he's going to experience a completely different level of communication. I'm going to be more intentional. Brother Jeans, there's a few things that I'm concerned about a certain situation. When you have some time, about 30 minutes, where we can speak without interruption, I really want to convey to you my feelings about what happened. Well, I'm going to get a completely different response from Brother Jeans than I would get if I was, hey, do you have a second? I don't know if he's in a meeting. I don't know if he's at dinner with his wife. I don't know if he's counseling his saints. But if I sow intentionality into that text, he's going to answer that with intentionality. Automatically, we're in a stronger place to have success than me and him just bantering back and forth with vague texts. And then, oh yeah, I tried to get a hold of you. Did you really though? Right? Because then I could later on say, yeah, I tried to get hold of Brother Jeans, it just never connected. But is that fair to Brother Jeans? No. So immediately, if I want a different outcome and an objective, and I need to speak about something important and the stakes are raised, then I should raise my level of intentionality and specificity around that. So at that, I'm just going to stop and let Brother Anderson break in.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm getting lots of texts and things of how helpful this is. So it is tremendous. And I've taken several notes here. I'm certainly not going to try to reteach anything, but some things that stuck out to me that I wanted to kind of tag in on. Number one, I appreciate you sharing that personal example. It just happened today, right? About something that you kind of saw from a bird's eye view. It sounds like a good idea. When it rubber meet the road, there was things that didn't work. So you worked through it and there was resolution because of communication. So I think that's great that we had not just an example. I mean, the Ronald Reagan one's great, but this one is from today. So that's excellent. And if anyone didn't catch that last few things you said, he talked about communication, timing, and objective being the three things that need to be conveyed. And all those kind of fall into the category of intentionality. But let me just say this. I do appreciate the Matthew 18 reference as well. Obviously, this is biblical. We want to communicate biblically, because God didn't leave us without any kind of direction. But I'm sure several on this call probably are familiar with a communication method called SBAR. I don't know if you ever heard of that, kind of an acronym, which stands for Situation, Background, Assessment, Resolution. This is what we use, like if just my wife and I, if we wanted to present a ministry like we did recently to the church, we kind of start with what the situation is, and then we go into the background of how this can help, our assessment, and then finally offer resolution. So that to me conveys I really respect the time of the leader. I'm not going to go in there and just kind of come up with questions on the spot. So that, and I'm sure Brother Bentley could speak more to that. He's well more versed on that than I am. But let me just open up here. If anyone has any questions for Brother Walker here, feel free to chime in on the mic or put them in chat. If you don't know how to put them in chat, you can text me. And so we'll stop here and see if there's anything. If not, we can see if he has some more to add. But I appreciate him stopping when he did, just to try to field any questions that may be there. Don't see anything coming in yet. So keep that in mind. We still got a few more minutes if Brother Walker has the time. So if you think of something, again, throw it in the chat, and then I'd like to if he's interested, I'd love to hear Brother Bentley's take at some point as well. So, Brother Walker, do you want to continue with your thoughts there?
Yeah. I'll just add one thing, and then you guys can open it up or whatever. It is the leader's responsibility to create an atmosphere that allows this. And that's got to be a real intentional effort, right? You can't just assume that people who are insecure, and all of us have levels to varying degrees of insecurity. But I always am more afraid of groupthink than I am upward descent. Okay. And so, there's books about leading up, there's conversations about leading up, but you can't throw away a leader until you've tried to help him lead. And to help him lead is to engage in conversation that is solution presentation. And so there are great leaders, none of which are inherently great, all of which have been made by multiple people. Okay. And so you have to allow that. Okay. So I preach a message, and I preached it, I think, 2 or 3 years ago here in Truth Church. And I love preaching on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And I preach a message called The Four Mothers of Moses. There were 4 women that had given Moses life. Okay. All of them invested in a grand maternal and developmental scheme to produce the greatest leader besides Jesus Christ that the world has ever known. Okay. His leadership is still functioning today in a national context. So the first woman that gave him life was obviously his mother. The second woman that gave him life was obviously the midwives. Okay. The third woman who gave him life was his sister Miriam. And the fourth woman who gave him life was his wife Zipporah, when she got involved in keeping God from slaying him. Each one of these women is technically a mother to him by giving him life. Now, if I take away from that and I look at that and say, I need to encourage people to bring out the greatest leader in me and to help me and to give me another go at it and another lease on life and another lease on leadership, per se. There's even a leadership lesson in that, is that you allow people to basically do what Moses's wife did, or what Moses's sister was allowed to do. When you create a culture that allows people to reason with you, you create a stronger leader. And so it's my job to encourage diverse perspectives, to promote constructive criticisms and conflict. It's even my job to use people to play. This is a bad word, and Andrew Bentley, if he's on here, may have a better word. But you need to appoint a devil's advocate, somebody who can look at the other side and say, yeah, but here's a consideration of what may or may not happen. Okay, that's what every Supreme Court justice does. He has a bunch of people in that room that are clerks to him, and he assigns them, you take the opposite position to what I believe, because I need you to see around the corners. I need you to see what the fallout for certain things are going to be, and to seek external input. So that's a key thing that a leader needs to do. And with that, I'll kind of wrap it up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a very, very valid point. I was just reading today about a couple of Supreme Court cases, some recent, some before, older. But yeah, how they don't try to know everything themselves, right? Because no leader can really do that. And another thing you had mentioned earlier that I just wanted to kind of circle back to, you said as a leader, when people come in with you, presumably for upward descent, or maybe even not, maybe just, hey, here's something you maybe haven't thought about, not necessarily having a problem with it, just, whatever your meeting is. You said you take notes. That
Yeah.
is certainly effective. I mean, I do that. Obviously, my wife and I do that in our counseling situations because, like you said, you don't want to interrupt the people, but also I don't want to miss things. Now, in our line of work, typically the people we're talking to do 90% of the talking, which is fine. But if it's more of a a church setting where you're trying to you know structure something, fix something or maybe improve something, um, you may do more as the leader, more of the talking, but to have that reference so that you're maximizing the time. I think what I'm hearing you say is there needs to be intentionality and there needs to be efficiency. There needs to be a respect for everyone's time, and things need to be done biblically. So I think that is fantastic. And brother Bentley is on here now. Sometimes he's doesn't want to jump in as if he knows everything, but he knows much more than I do. And
He's
let me
used to
just
jumping in with me.
and good. And let me just say that for those who don't know, he's very instrumental in Apostolic Life and Leadership. He has been from the beginning one who's helped me on the marketing side and thought through a lot of things. So I always love it when he's able to pop in, and particularly with this being his hometown, his home pastor. So, Brother Bentley, if you have anything to chime in, this is kind of your wheelhouse, the whole communication.
Sure. Can you hear me okay, Brother Anderson?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I've had the privilege of sitting under the care of Pastor Walker's leadership. And one thing that absolutely stands out, and you probably heard the word a few times, is that intentionality. And he is very intentional in his leadership, but specific related to this topic, communication. He shows intentionality with leadership. And when communicating with people in your care, you have to think about your communication in terms of what to say, when to say it, how much to say, what not to say, who to say it to, how to say it. Like there's all of these considerations of communication. And I think what Pastor Walker does particularly well is he thinks about, with intentionality, all of these elements of communication so that the communication is in fact effective. So I think, that's something that all of us should have gathered from what he was talking about. The note taking is interesting because as you think about note taking, whether you delineate between counseling versus coaching, and we could get into more nuance in terms of leadership, but I think there's note taking and there's not note taking, and depending upon the role that you're playing. And I loved his question that he starts the communication with is, what is it that we're trying to achieve out of this meeting? The second thing I'll often ask people in addition to that is, what role do you want me to play? Am I supposed to be in listen mode, or am I going to help you brainstorm a solution, or are you looking for feedback on the solution that you've already come up with? And setting that at the beginning of the communication so we know exactly where we're going, and we're not on this wandering trail of ambiguity and generalizations, but what are we trying to achieve through this communication? So again, to his credit, he brings that level of intentionality and he brings that focus to the communication so that we're actually achieving something through this communication. And for me, I use note-taking sometimes and I don't use note-taking other times. And I try to be intentional about that. If somebody is bringing a problem to me, I often won't take notes to signal to them I don't have a role in this solution per se, and I don't have to take notes. What you're looking for me to help you see the forest for the trees. You're helping me to help clear the landscape for you, and I don't have to take a note because I don't own anything. You own the solution, and you own much of what we're going to be talking about, and I'm helping guide you through that process. And so I use note taking with intentionality to either copy and write down things that you're saying to relate back to, or I don't take notes because I'm signaling to you that you're bringing the solution and we're going to brainstorm, but you ultimately own the outcome that we're trying to solution around. So that's just some feedback. I mean, there's so much that we could double click on here because there was so much that was said in this short amount of time that all of us can benefit from, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you very much for that, Brother Bentley. Definitely well said. I concur with everything that has been said. Are there any other questions that anybody has? If not, we do respect everyone's time, and we kind of bill this as a 1 hour deal. We're getting close to that mark, and certainly appreciate Brother Walker's time. I don't see any questions. Brother Walker, closing comments, sir?
No, I'm good. I've rattled off as much as you need me tonight. Thank you for having me on. It's a real privilege, and I respect you guys very much, and I appreciate the work and the value added to the kingdom of God.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And just so you know, everybody, we do have a YouTube channel that we'll be uploading all of these to, and we will get that on our website. You can go back and visit any of the previous classes that were taught. Next month, we have another Canadian. This is our first one, but now we got back-to-back Canadians. Got Brother Dan McKillop. So, and I'll probably tell him the kingdom speaks the best thing going, but really Truth Talk is, because Brother Walker's here now. So anyway. So God bless y'all. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you, sir. And we'll be in touch. God bless you, sir.
God bless.